Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Just having a nice easy recovery ride around the Champs-Élysées in Paris. If you've seen my video, my last video, which is some threshold efforts on Friday, I was feeling pretty sore and tired from some of the rides through that week, especially a harder one that I had earlier in the week, a VO2 workout on a Tuesday that I wasn't really fueled for. So yeah, it took its toll on me, and pretty much for yesterday I was meant to have a long endurance ride, and I had the day completely off. And today I'm just having a really light roll, as you can tell by those watts. And yeah, just hopefully come up really fresh for tomorrow. I've got one more week of loading up, and then I'll have a light recovery week, and then into another test, and hopefully set some new numbers. In that last video as well, I mentioned how hot I was, even though I've had my fans back nice and close, because I've been playing around with them to try and help with the mic noise. Basically, the reason some of my videos with my voice gets a little bit muffled or hazy is because obviously I've got a lot of breeze coming at my face, and I'm trying to throw my voice to the mic. Hence the reason sometimes it doesn't sound good. I turn the fans down, and you can hear me, but it's not as clear as if I was just sitting at the desk talking to you. But just in that last ride, even though I had the fans on me exactly how I normally would, just being a little bit warmer and not having an air conditioner near where I am to help actually control the environment, I drank about 1 litre in that ride, but I still dropped over 1 kilogram of weight, body weight, obviously fluid, in that 1 hour session. So heaps of fans, drinking lots, and still dropped so much weight. So clearly you can put that back on with fluids, but still it just shows you how hot and how much you're working. Okay, so we try to have a bit of a chat on these recovery rides. Normally I wouldn't do one on the weekend like this, but gives us a good chance to pick a topic, and I've chose power versus heart rate. Interesting topics. So if you haven't trained with heart rate and power before, I'm guessing if you're watching Zwift, or if you're on Zwift, you will have, I suppose you could get away with just a speed sensor to get movement, but normally probably a lot of us have got heart rate, and some people have either power meters or smart trainers to give you the bit more of a real world feel. But as in heart rate, I probably haven't been for a ride on a bike, training or racing, without a heart rate monitor, or for, I'll just say, well over 20 years. Now, a lot of the times, if you're not really working in zones or anything, it's, yeah, no need to necessarily have it on, or you might not be paying attention to it. You're just going to turn the legs over. But I do have just an enormous amount of data from all over that time as to just whether I'm paying attention to it at the time on the ride or not. But it's get to know my body pretty well. So heart rate is really important. And then since power meters have become more mainstream, more affordable, used to be just the pro teams having access to them, and now you can get, they're still expensive, so it's not for everyone, but Like you can get crank-based power meters, pedal-based power meters. Used to get hub-based ones as well. I'm not sure if they're still happening. And everyone, I've read lots of articles, this is why I picked this topic, lots of articles that say power is the be-all and end-all of measurement because it measures output. You can't trick output as long as it's calibrated. Everything output is output. You're either putting more pressure on the pedals, and so it means your training is either beneficial or it's not working how you want it to. If you're getting stronger, you should be able to push more watts. And it's usually, it doesn't matter if you're going uphill, downhill, headwind, tailwind. Power on the pedals is power on the pedals. It is output. It's a bit like, just think of the car and the engine. It's more powerful engine. It's going to be able to produce higher power to the rear wheels, and away you go. We're not really any different. Got the engine up here, tyres are down there, and if we're outside, obviously, trainer if we're inside, and we push on the pedals, and that gives us forward motion. But I don't believe that power is so important that we should forget about heart rate. Especially if you're on a plan and you're looking for overall improvement. When you hop on here, it's your power number that you see up on the screen that generates your forward movement. Now, whether or not you don't even need to be wearing a heart rate strap. If you want to be considered for races and in official finishes, you certainly need to have a heart rate strap because they've got to validate Zwift power. Will want to make sure that your efforts are within your normal cycling sort of parameters. Make sure they can look at your history on Zwift and look at Strava and look at everything. I guess they go more into that for the high-end pro-type races, but they can look at, all my stuff is open to look at, so they can check at any time they want to validate that the power I'm putting out is consistent. They can see the history of my weights, my power, heart rate. So when I go, if I produce just a little bit more power and my heart rate is pretty much the same or maybe even a little bit higher, it's like, okay, well, he's either improved slightly or he's a little bit fitter or having a good day. It's like, it's very easy to look at your history in Zwift power, and you can tell when someone's been riding on their limits. Yeah, there's just a really good history, and it's there for everyone that wants to go in and look at anyone's history. So you can't have an exceptionally brilliant day if you've dropped 5 kilos in a day. It stands out, and if you've put on 50 watts more than you've ever put out before, you can't really cheat the system as such, I guess. This is a big history there, and the longer you're on Zwift, the trend is there and it shows you. But yeah, so everyone says like power's the way to go because it's output is output. Who cares? That's all good. But and heart rate, a lot of people you'll read it where heart rate can be affected by lots of different other factors, like it does have a response time. So if you jump out of the saddle and sprint really hard, heart rate will take a while. There's a bit of a delay. It could be 5 seconds, like 10 seconds before it actually catches up with the actual effort you're doing. And for those sort of things, short, sharp sprints, under 15 seconds, that sort of thing, that's true. It's power will give you the number, heart rate won't catch up. Where it'll be more, your heart rate would be more affected by what you've been doing before the sprint. Were you just rolling along at this pace and then did a real hard sprint? Or were you riding almost as fast as you could and then did a big sprint? So I get that, but what I don't agree with what I read and hear a lot of the time is it's all about power. and not about heart rate, because it can be affected by everything. But you have to remember that your heart rate is your input to the pedals. Your power is the output. So yeah, the output will tell you whether you're producing more or not, but you need to look at the input, because that'll tell you why you're not putting out more, or if you are putting out more, like, is it because you're feeling really good, you're really rested, or have you set a new max heart rate sort of thing? Your heart rate tells you everything why now, and if it is affected by things like heat, whether you're ill, or if you're not feeling well, whether or not you're fatigued from previous races. So you can't just look at your output and be happy or unhappy with the number. Like, you need to look and understand what's going on with the engine that's powering that output number you're so interested in. And if you're a crazy cyclist like me, cyclists are just unbelievable data addicts. We like heart rate, we like power, we like cadence, we like nominal power, average power, max power, speeds, altitudes, elevations. The list just goes on and on. So the more data we can get, the more we like to look at it and see where we can improve and compare it to other people. But I certainly can't recommend enough, since I've had a power meter, I love looking at both the heart rate and power. And I will do another video, so I think of it, on some bits of equipment that might affect your heart rate and power output. It'll be, yeah, we'll save that for another video, but 'cause I'm going to keep this one short. But yeah, like I think so. Over time, with my maximum heart rate has dropped a little bit. Sorry, so I'd say maybe 20 years ago, my max was about 205. The highest I've seen this year was 197. Although it's sat at that for a little bit, but I've certainly been at 190, 195 or 196 a number of times. The 197, it sort of got there and held for a bit, but I don't know whether I actually class that as an anomaly or not. But let's just say the mid 190s I had visited a number of times last year and this year. So that's definitely where I'm at. So my maximum heart rate has dropped down. So that's everyone's maximum is going to be very different. Everyone's heart rate is super unique to themselves. My resting heart rate, I've always had fairly low resting, and it depends on whether you want to. I'll look at two things: my average resting heart rate for the night, but also what was the lowest that it actually dropped down to. The lowest sort of, I will only ever see a really, like a good number after a couple of rest days, or like after one rest day in a really light ride like this, where actually having a ride is doing you better than not having a ride. Just to clear the legs out. They've been working hard, so I would expect to see a good number tomorrow. But my resting heart rate through the night, well, the lowest I've been now to this throughout this year is 36. That's the lowest point through a night that I've dropped down to, and I regularly drop down into the 30s. 36 is the lowest. But my average for the whole night is something like whether you get up to use the bathroom or just having a restless night. Like I'll certainly, as I am loading through the week, and I'll have sore legs, so I ride at an intensity that gives me like a dull ache in my legs, and it absolutely can affect my sleep. And as I said, my heart rate variability and sleep quality, it's all calculated on quality of sleep, hours of sleep, deep sleep, and heart rate drop. So when I'm really loading up and my body is working hard to recover because I'm so fatigued, or I'm having a restless night because I've got my legs are aching, or for whatever reason, my average for the whole night will normally be, I had to pick, it can really change between the first week of load and the last week of load, but I'd say usually around maybe the high 40s, 47, 48 would be average. Sometimes I wake up, and if my average heart rate for the night when I'm meant to be resting is over 50, I know that my body's really at a fatigued state, because really normal is pretty much 40. And if I'm in a recovery week, I will definitely be in the 30s, and I will definitely dip into the 30s every night. Through when I'm after a few days of recovery, and especially towards the end of a recovery week, I've got my heart rate back down really low. So now, I was always told years ago when I started doing proper training, if my heart rate was 10 beats higher in the morning, so every morning I check my heart rate, if it was 10 beats higher than my lowest ever recorded heart rate, then it probably, something was a little bit off. And just take note for the day. Should you train? Are you feeling a bit, are you coming down with, like you're sick, or you're just fatigued? Like, so just keep an eye on yourself for that day and see what you're doing, and how you feel through a workout. But so yeah, I suppose I grew up with heart rate being so important, which has allowed me to really understand my body and then the power output, especially for everyone coming into it now, who reads certain ways. It's probably always recommended you have a heart rate and a power meter, because like you need it to race on Zwift anyway. But when you're just training, don't get caught up with just the power numbers, because as I said, power is output, and if something's going on with that output, you really need to understand what's going on with the input. So in a perfect world, I'd always recommend a heart rate monitor and a power meter, and then just have a look when you do a certain effort. Look at what your average and heart rates were, your max heart rates, and when you train a bit, especially if you're training for improvement, and you do that same ride or that same test, and once again, when you do it inside and there's no other elements, weather, heat, wind, when all that's not really an issue, it's really repetitive. As long as you've got fans and it's not too hot inside and everything, it's those rides are really repetitive, so you can, better than ever, you can measure improvement. So yeah, they're not cheap. Like it's, by the time you've already spent probably lots of money on your bike, and then you need you probably want a smart trainer, so you've gone and spent heaps on that. Now you've got your Zwift membership, and then I send everything to Training Peaks, so I've got that subscription. then you want some other nice little bits for your setup, your fans and other bits, which will, once again, I'll do another video on the setup I've got and the settings that I use. I think that might be a good video as well. But, so then if your bike hasn't got a power meter, it can be a real pricey addition. Crank or pedals, to be honest, you're going to be looking upwards of, you get just a crank based, like a stages or a single sided power meter pedal one, you could be looking maybe sort of at $500, just over $500. Or if you get a set of cranks with the power meter built in, everything, you might be upwards of you're going to be probably over $1,000. So it's an expensive addition. Heart rate monitors aren't too bad. Pretty much every you can buy just a heart rate strap that'll go straight to Zwift for you, make Bluetooth strap, or you've got your little Ant Plus dongle. So most things can link to Zwift, or if you've got like a Garmin head unit or a Wahoo type head unit. So chest straps and heart rate is really, really affordable. Good heart rate strap, probably not even $100. You're going to get a really top of the line one, might be 150. So it's really affordable for what you can get out of it. Power meter, a lot more expensive, but a great training tool, because when you test, you can see the output. And if it's not what you wanted, that's what we've been saying, you can look at the input and go, well, hang on, I was meant to be nice and fresh today, but I couldn't even get my heart rate up to where it was last time. No wonder I couldn't push the same numbers, because I'm clearly not fully recovered, or my body wasn't working right, and that is why I couldn't produce the number. That's why I didn't do as good as what I was hoping to today. And it's nothing worse than going through a training session and then testing and not seeing an improvement or not making it through. It's like it'll happen lots. It's happened to me heaps of times where you just don't produce the number you want, and you just got to understand that there's so many factors. It's when you can work out like your nice taper and coming in, and you can sort of reproduce coming into to a certain day the same. That's why it's great having a history. Like, because if you want to really peak on a day, you're going to need to start working a number of weeks out. You might be able to just say, I'll take it easy for a week and do a good number, and you might not. But if you start 4 weeks out, or you do 3 weeks of gradual load and a nice easy week and then the test or something, at least it's any offsets at the start over 4 weeks, it will have evened out, and it's a bit more of a fair test, I guess, because you've done the same thing, like the same plan. It might be at a new intensity because you did well last test, so there's going to be slight changes, but you're giving yourself the same time frame and the same chance, and you can look back, and if you log all your water and your food as well, you can sort of see how you're prepared that way as well. But yeah, if you have any questions on the heart rate and the power, by all means send them through, put them on the comment section on YouTube and so forth, and yeah, we'll certainly try to answer everyone's question. But just an interesting topic. We get so caught up in the numbers, we sometimes prioritise certain ones over others, where just I think you should always just look at heart rate as input and power as output for the pedals. Obviously your heart rate is the output of your body, but if we're talking where the transition between body and bike happens at the pedals there, then it's heart rate in, power out. That's how I always think of it anyway. Once again, if anyone else has got different comments, by all means let us know. Everyone can learn in different ways, so that's certainly how I think of it. You might make sense to you to think of it in a more different way, but since I have moved my setup inside from out of the back in the little granny flat, I certainly, as I said in the last video, I need to get the environment here under control a bit better, because even though I've got my fans, with the heat that I'm feeling, I've got some lights and that going on as well, which probably doesn't help. That makes the streaming viewing pleasure a little bit better for you guys, I think. The perceived exertion at certain heart rates and efforts feels higher, and that makes absolute sense. Heat is the number one thing that will do that to you. So I'm feeling hotter. I'm not going to be doing exactly my best. So next week will be interesting, because I'll be doing my sweet spots and my VO2s and my thresholds will be a bit longer than this, like last week's. So and as I said, just my 2x15 on Friday of threshold was I dropped a kilo in an hour, over a kilo, 1.2 of fluid, and that's with drinking as much as I can actually stomach during, as much as I want to stomach while I'm breathing hard. When you're sort of up around threshold and you're trying to like scoff in some water and everything, it's like it's only sort of sips you can do, so you got to either do it a lot, and while you're having a drink you're not taking a breath really, not in your normal pattern anyway. So it's trying to drink more is affecting just affecting it a little bit more too, I guess. So I'm not taking in as much as what I would normally would, because I wouldn't be quite as hot. Still always going to be working hard. It's still like the energy in is still how much you're burning off. Like we've mentioned how you're about 25% efficient, so 250 watts into the pedals means you're throwing off about 750 watts of heat. So that's a lot you got to cool down. So yeah, the hotter you are, the more you're sweating, and to sweat heaps too is not enjoyable really inside. Not if you can't cool it off. So we'll see how we go. We might have to keep the fans cranked during. Maybe there won't be so much talking through next week, which will be a pleasure for you. But I might have to keep the fans cranked during the recovery periods too, just to help cool me down. Might have to lose the top as well. You wouldn't think that this would, when you're outside and there's air everywhere, I guess it's a bit different. You're not probably doing the efforts. You don't sort of sweat as much. You've got air all around you. But when you're got a top on here, I can just, like my back, everywhere just gets soaked with sweat. So makes you wonder why we do it. Well, I'm going to keep going for a bit of a roll, but might leave you guys with that. It's just my opinion of power and heart rate. I think they're both super important. And if one is not what it normally is, there's a reason. Your heart rate tells you so much. It tells you whether you're sick, getting sick, even though if you don't feel sick. And it tells you whether you're fatigued and haven't recovered, whether you should have a rest. You don't necessarily need aches and pains through the body to know if you need a rest. Your heart rate, your body's got to work hard to recover when you put it through some hard training. So, yeah, got any more questions? By all means, yell out, and we'll have another chat session on Wednesday's our next easy day. So I've got a long list of topics. I think they're all interesting things. We'll just have a chat on them. Hopefully someone gets something out of it. All right. Better roll a few more laps, and we will talk again during tomorrow's session. All right, have fun. Happy Father's Day to everyone out there. This is how I spend my Father's Day. Already called my dad. He's happy. So this is what makes me happy. All right. Enjoy, everyone. We'll talk soon. Cheers.